So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Jacqueline Suarez, and I am the Commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs. I hope that you all had a very interesting and riveting early session morning going on. This truly is an opportunity for us to re-engage, re-energize, and to figure out how we are going to move forward in the housing and economic development space. Before I go any further, I do just want to take a moment to thank both the conference sponsors and vendors, as well as the staff who organize this event every year. I cannot highlight enough how much effort goes into this by all of the organizations who sponsor this event. I would also like to thank Acting Governor Tahisha Way, who is with us today, who has taken time out of her busy day. And also take a moment to recognize all the agencies that work hard to put this event together. So we've got the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency, we have the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and we have the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. And then, of course, a huge thank you to all of you for attending. I think if our numbers were actually correct, we have surpassed what we've done in years behind, so I can't read that because it's probably backwards, but we're definitely over a higher percentage of last year, so thank you all for making this a better event than it even was, and last year was our banner year. So thank you for all attending. I like the smattering. I like the smattering of applause. It makes me feel really warm and fuzzy inside. So I have no doubt that there is a lot of learning going on, there's a lot of coalescing of ideas going on, and this always reinvigorates me every year to see how is it that we can keep moving the needle forward in the state of New Jersey when we're talking about the housing and economic development space. And one person who is constantly focused on putting working families at the center of housing and economic development across our state is Reverend Derek Green, who will be doing our invocation for this lunch. Reverend Green earned his bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, Newark, and obtained his master's degree in public management from the University of Maryland School of Public Policy. I don't want to have to do this because this is what the governor did when we were down in DC. He threatened to take away the alcohol. We don't have alcohol, but I don't want to take away the food. So if we could just literally quiet down for a couple more minutes, I would really appreciate it. So Reverend Green is an ordained elder in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He has advised heads of states, senators, governors, mayors, county executives, and other elected officials and community leaders, both domestic and international. In January of 2018, Reverend Derek Green was appointed by Governor Murphy as Senior Advisor for Diversity, Faith, Urban, and Regional Growth. In his role, Reverend Green works to implement public policy that will help people across the state of New Jersey. He's also the founder of the Interfaith Action Movement, also known as IAM, whose mission is to address the spiritual, social, and economic needs of underserved and marginalized communities. He is a member of the 100 Black Men of Washington, D.C. and vicinity, and the NAACP, and is a recipient of numerous awards and recognitions, including induction into the Rutgers University African American Alumni Hall of Fame in 2018. Reverend Green is constantly challenging the state to put in place programs that meaningfully improve the lives of New Jerseyans, and he always helps to get the word out to people about the programs and services that we have at the Department of Community Affairs. To say he's a good partner is an understatement. We welcome Reverend Derek Green to the stage to provide today's invocation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right. If at all possible, bow your heads for prayer. God, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for waking us up this morning and keeping us through the night. God, we come with the spirit of thanks. No matter what your religious beliefs are, or if you don't have a religious belief, we come with the spirit of thanks. God, we thank you for our state, the great state of New Jersey. God, we thank you for being able to have a vision to do something different. At these tables, God, there are people who have a vision, have ideas. They want to make our state better. They want to build things. They have innovative ideas. And when there is vision, God, you give provision for vision. And so I thank God for the HMFA, DCA, NJRA, EDA, and any other A I didn't mention. I ask for continued blessings on this conference, because this conference is going to make New Jersey a better place. In your name we pray, amen. 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 It is my honor and privilege to introduce the acting governor and New Jersey Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State, the Honorable Taisha L. Way. She serves as New Jersey's third Lieutenant Governor. She was appointed to the position by Governor Phil Murphy on September the 8th, 2023. A lifelong public servant, Lieutenant Governor Way has devoted her entire career to improving the lives of her fellow New Jerseyans. Over the past 2 decades, she has served at numerous levels of local and state government. As Lieutenant Governor, Ms. Way brings her extensive experience to bear on addressing the greatest challenges facing New Jerseyans, from making life more affordable to protecting fundamental freedoms like access to reproductive health care and equality under the law, to maintaining New Jersey's reputation as the best and safest state to raise a family. In addition to her role as Lieutenant Governor, Ms. Way also serves as New Jersey's 34th Secretary of State, a position she has held since the beginning of the Murphy administration. As Secretary of State, Ms. Way leads one of the nation's oldest constitutional offices and directs a department with a diverse portfolio. In her capacity as New Jersey's top election official, she has overseen the State Division of Elections and its work in securing our democracy and ensuring broad, fair access for the right to vote. She is the former president of the Women Empowerment Democratic Organization of Passaic County. Lieutenant Governor Way is a graduate of Brown University, where she served as vice president of the collegiate chapter of the NAACP, president of the Iota Alpha chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, taught religious education, and was a radio announcer for WBRU-FM. She holds a JD from the University of Virginia School of Law at Charlottesville, where she clerked for the Virginia Legal and Society and the United Steelworkers of America. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Acting Governor Taisha Way.
Okay. Can we show Reverend Green some more love, please, for that powerful prayer? And I tell you, for his powerful work that he does throughout this state for the betterment of us all. The only thing my friend failed to mention was, in my bio, I did all that by the tender age of 22, y'all. That's right. That's what we do here in New Jersey. And of course, let's also show some love for the one and only dynamic commissioner of DCA, Commissioner Suarez, my dear colleague. I tell you, it is definitely a good afternoon and a true privilege to be with each and every one of you at the 2025, y'all, Governor's Council on Housing and Economic Development. I had to read it to get it right. And on behalf of Gov. Murphy and the entire administration, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you. I want to shout out the housing advocates, community partners, business leaders, and of course, developers and public officials. Any pets out there, y'all are all good with us for your unwavering commitment to building a stronger, fairer, and more resilient New Jersey. And we all know this work is not easy. It requires vision, collaboration, and a deep belief in the dignity of every single person who calls this state home. And together we've made historic strides. Through the passage of Assembly Bill 4 and Senate Bill 50, we've brought clarity. That's right, legislators, and accountability to the affordable housing development process, ensuring that more families can access quality homes in safe, thriving neighborhoods. And that's just not policy, everyone. That is process, progress with a purpose. We also launched NJ Homes. Are you familiar with this? Yes, a groundbreaking initiative that brings together agencies, developers, and municipalities to streamline planning, financing, and data sharing. NJ Homes is more than a toolkit. It's a promise to our communities that we will move projects forward with confidence and with care. And on the economic development front, our focus has been 2 words: inclusive growth. That means strengthening small businesses, expanding apprenticeships and workforce development programs, and making record investments in infrastructure and innovation. These efforts ensure that our communities are not only places to live, but places where opportunity and prosperity can truly take root. Now, pardon my pun, but New Jersey is leading the way. Did y'all get it? We are investing in place-based revitalization and people-centered pathways to mobility. We are proving that economic development and equity are not opposing forces, but they are partners. And of course, we know that federal uncertainty can pose real challenges. That's why gatherings like these, y'all, matter. They allow us as leaders to share solutions, strengthen partnerships, to understand that we need to show some grace to speakers and not speak while they're speaking. And speaking of leadership, because y'all truly are leaders, it is my great honor this afternoon to introduce someone who has been a national force in this space. Our keynote speaker has spent her career ensuring that housing and income security remain central priorities in federal policy. Now, Madam Keynote Speaker, this is going to be somewhat of a this is your life, excuse me for it, but you are phenomenal, and it is, and she is, the one and only Peggy Bailey, y'all. Yes, Peggy. Peggy is the Executive Vice President for Policy and Program Development at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. She also serves as Vice President for Housing and Income Security. And in these roles, Peggy guides the center's work to strengthen and reform federal and state programs that help people make and meet their basic needs: housing, health concerns, nutrition, and more. Peggy's work is rooted in a deep understanding of how systems intersect. She has built bridges between housing, health, child welfare, and nutrition, always centering the people within these systems who really are in need of service. She has worked to make government services more responsive to the realities of people's lives. She has never, ever shied away from naming the truth that racism and discrimination have shaped the inequities we see today. So you go some more, Peggy. That's right. And she has committed her career to dismantling those barriers so that all people, regardless of background, can thrive. Peggy first joined the center in 2016 as the director of Connecting the Dots, bridging systems for better health. She later served as vice president for housing policy. She has also served in the Biden-Harris administration as senior advisor on rental assistance to HUD Secretary Marsha L. Fudge. Her work has spanned the Corporation for Supportive Housing, the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and the Association of Maternal and Child Health Programs. She holds a BA in government from the University of Notre Dame and a Master of Public Affairs from the University of Texas at Dallas. So everyone, please, let's show some New Jersey love and welcome for today's keynote speaker, Peggy Bailey. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm glad that I could continue the tradition of Black women holding multiple titles and how hard we have to work. It's great to be here with you all today. Just getting my situation together. So thank you very much, Acting Governor Way, Commissioner Suarez, CEO Anderson, Executive Director Walter, and her Chief of Staff, Terry Tucker, CEO Sullivan, and your teams for participating in this event and inviting me to speak here today and modeling a lot of what I want to talk about, how we need to work together and strengthen our partnerships together across systems to help the people that we're here to serve. For those who aren't familiar with us, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities is a DC-based think tank focused on protecting and expanding economic security for low and moderate income families and individuals. In addition to our work on housing, budget, tax, food assistance, healthcare coverage, and Medicaid, Social Security, TANF, child support programs, and guaranteed basic income programs, we focus at the state level in all of those areas as well, and several others like education, mostly through partnerships with organizations like New Jersey Policy Perspective and other issue-specific state-level networks who are doing the critical work on the ground to ensure all New Jerseyans can meet their basic needs. I'm excited to share the Center's perspective on housing policy here today. Housing and community development is having a national moment. Prominent influencers like Ezra Klein are writing books about it. Both sides of the political aisle listed as a priority. And while many of the policies passed in the reconciliation bill this summer may be very harmful to low-income people, there was some good news. Programs like the low-income housing tax credit and necessary improvements were able to slide through and remain intact. And here in New Jersey, there have been major past investments in affordable housing, including targeted help to the people who need it the most, using COVID relief dollars to help end homelessness and prevent evictions for many people, and a history of investment in support services like mental health services, substance use treatment, and intensive case management. I know this year has been tough, and the state has had to reduce available resources and constrain rental assistance. I hope you all are taking this like a canary in the coal mine moment. And if you haven't engaged in housing or the broader economic community program advocacy ecosystem, you plan to start. I say this because I'm very concerned that some of the industries and people represented in this room are having a head in the sand moment, while the world around us, especially for many of the residents of the communities we say we're here to build and protect, are in a world that is deteriorating and deteriorating for them fast. My worry is represented in the fact that we're operating in two worlds right now. One normal world, where advocates and industry leaders are bringing their list of priorities to state and federal legislators like you have always done, negotiating with each other to find agreeable solutions. This incremental approach of this world that I describe, while frustrating, can still be effective and is, to a certain extent, moving along as business as usual. The community development pieces of the federal reconciliation bill represent this approach. So does legislation like the Road to Housing bill that's passing through the Senate right now with bipartisan support. Obviously, in the rental assistance and health services spaces, we're also seeing the federal appropriations process follow this track. And here in New Jersey, many of you banded together in the cuts that have been proposed and fought back and been able to get some of those resources back that were initially on the chopping block. But there's another world happening simultaneously, and this world is the world that worries me the most. It is this alternative universe where existential threats exist. Congress and the administration are taking actions that are resulting in massive historic cuts to programs like Medicaid and food assistance for low-income people. They may not extend tax credits for health insurance coverage, tax credits that help people whose employers won't pay for their health insurance coverage be able to afford that coverage and purchase it on their own. Without those tax credits, 22 million people will see their insurance premiums spike, or they may lose coverage altogether. And without health coverage, all it takes is one expensive health crisis to destroy a person or family's economic security and take away their ability to afford the basics like food and housing. Federal programs are illegally underfunded or being defunded entirely, putting state and federal governments on the hook to fill in the gaps, and creating huge uncertainty for nonprofit entities we rely on to meet people's needs. Federal employees can't even count on the fact that they may have a job on a given day, and there are enormous safety threats for vulnerable populations like recent immigrants and LGBTQ+ people. This alternative universe can't be ignored. You all have to see it as a priority to engage in these larger order fights. Think about it from a resident's perspective. Think about the residents living in your properties and in the communities you're supporting. You want your residents to be financially stable because that ensures your own financial stability. But your residents are facing so much economic uncertainty right now. I want you to put a picture and keep this in your head of the typical family living in your community, or a tenant that you're renting to, or the family that thought that this year was the year they were going to buy their first home, or the small business owner that's a staple in your community. Now think about all of the worries that may be on their mind 24/7 while facing these new existential threats, worries that didn't exist 10 months ago. Consider how new proposals to the healthcare system trying to make people have to meet harsh work requirements will affect residents in your properties. By and large, these policies simply serve to take healthcare away from people with disabilities or serious health conditions, people who are caregiving ill family members, or people who are working, but whose employers may not give them enough steady hours or don't grant sick leave. Or people who are working, but can't fill out the burdensome amounts of paperwork that are required to prove that they are working. And consider what will happen if Congress fails to extend premium tax credits that help millions of families purchase health coverage. And then consider that before the Affordable Care Act, policies like the premium tax credit existed, healthcare costs for uninsured people were the leading cause of personal bankruptcy and household instability. And now we're going back to that world again. Consider how that's going to affect your residents' ability to pay their bills, stay housed, and consider how that in turn will impact your bottom line. The family in your mind may be losing access to help they need to pay food for their kids. States like New Jersey will start having to pick up more of the price tag of food assistance. In the past, the federal government paid 50% of the administrative costs and 100% of the benefits that families receive in the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Starting in October of 2026, the federal government will only pay 25% of the administrative costs. And the following year, depending on your state's SNAP error rate, which is a misleading term, and I don't have time to go into that today, but states will have to pick up as much as 15% of the benefits people receive. If the state can't meet these costs, states likely won't have a SNAP program because the federal government won't pay its share if states don't contribute. So I'm going to stay on SNAP for a minute because it really provides an example of the growing budget pressures on the state. In New Jersey, the SNAP error rate in 2024 was about 14%. That means that the cost shift from the federal government to New Jersey is going to be around $287 million. Now, I think you all understand the state's budget enough to know that $300 million isn't just lying around for them to try to fill in that gap. And that doesn't include what the state might want to do to fill in the health insurance gap, or that 25% I mentioned extra that states are going to have to pay of the SNAP administration benefit. So as I said, this is an important point to underscore too. If the state doesn't find that $287 million and the extra 27% of admin costs, it could lose its SNAP program entirely. As I highlighted, the shifting state housing resources this year is truly a canary in the coal mine. You all understand, and no one in this room should ignore, that trying to find these resources puts the whole entire state budget at risk, and housing and community development partners need to work together and be part of the larger social services ecosystem so that advocates and stakeholders can work together and not fight with each other, because that could be counterproductive not only today, but in the long run. So let me take you back to that family that I asked you to put in your mind. Despite the fact that we are a nation of immigrants, and it should be celebrated that we all look different, come from different places, and speak a multitude of languages, federal agencies have now been charged with terrorizing anyone who is different and treating them like they are less than human. If someone in the family I asked you to picture is an immigrant, has family or friends who are immigrants, speaks another language aside from English, then in addition to being worried about having enough food or healthcare coverage or other federal help, their life as they know it is also at risk. To be clear, this is happening to people with and without documentation. Economic security programs like SNAP and Medicaid are rarely available to people without a lawful immigration status. The reconciliation bill took SNAP and healthcare away from people who are living, working, and paying taxes in this country legally, often people who escape to the United States for humanitarian reasons. This is what, until now, we've said has made the United States great and positioned us as a beacon to the world of diversity and thriving and excellence. Now we are projecting the exact opposite, and the lives of our neighbors and the residents in your buildings are at risk. Maybe the family you were thinking about has members who are LGBTQ plus people, which are also under threat, with concerns about their general well-being and legal threats to their ability to access the medical care they need, marry who they love, simply be themselves, provide stable housing and food for their families, and otherwise live in the world like everyone else. Or maybe the family you're seeing is at risk of homelessness, or are currently living without a home and on the street, and living with the trauma of having been threatened by increased policing, or jailing, and harassing, all of which causes harm to their person, their mental health, and their ability to meet renter requirements that you've established. Sadly, this alternate universe is not fiction. It is real life. People are being othered and dehumanized because they don't have the money to put them in powerful positions. Poverty is not a crime. It is largely a policy choice. People with less money are in circumstances primarily through no fault of their own. Many employers don't pay high enough wages for families to meet their basic needs, and the federal minimum wage is dreadfully low. I know the minimum wage is better here in New Jersey, but we know that people still don't have enough money to meet their basic needs. We saw this show up during the pandemic when we praised grocery store workers and healthcare system workers, service industry folks, and others who were risking their health to take care of all of us. And I naively thought, oh, okay, now we've learned a lesson and we're gonna do better. But sadly, we did not. We just took note and kept things moving along the status quo. So many things we saw show up in the pandemic lay on that road of just noting and keeping with the status quo. Remember how federal economic security programs, like the expanded child tax credit, reduced childhood poverty by half? We did that. Standard government benefits, though, have not met the moment, and things like TANF and Social Security don't fill in income gaps enough for people to meet basic needs either. We make poor people jump through so many hoops to show they deserve help, while giving significant subsidies to the wealthy and wealthy corporations and asking for very little in return. And now we blame inflation as the excuse for never trying anything ever again, and consigning people to the idea that the pie is only so big, so anyone wanting to help people in poverty have to fight each other for resources. Yet at the same time, wealthy people benefit from loopholes and other special rules to lower taxes pay lower taxes than wage earners, or even avoid paying taxes altogether. Some of the nation's wealthiest people, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, pay little or no federal tax at all. This is completely backwards. And I would curse if I could, but I'm not gonna do that today. I've talked about a wide array of issues, but let me bring this down to why it's important for housing directly. As I started with, the good news is that housing supply and the need to increase affordable housing supply is having a moment. How to do it is still up for the air. We need, obviously, more resources, but there's bipartisan support, once again, for increasing supply, and there is movement toward doing the things it takes to make supply easier to build. However, this conversation is also largely ignoring the 20% or so of people at the lowest end of the income scale who can't afford even the lowest rent a property owner can afford to charge. We talk about more supply, lowering housing purchase and rent costs, But we don't talk about how relying solely on the housing industry to do all the building means that profitability plays a role in how, the amount of units, and what type, and affordable to whom comes into play. The incentive to build more stops when the profit calculus isn't right. There are important conversations being had about how social housing models are working and could work, but as we work through what true transformation looks like, how about we just enact straightforward state and federal funding support to create housing affordable for all? That means grant funding with no or few strings attached, so that just simply help deals pencil out, and a living wage for people so they can afford a place to live. And if we aren't going to go so far as to establish a living wage, then rental assistance is the solution. Rental assistance is the #1 way that's proven to be able to close the income gap for people so that they only pay 30% of their income and their rent costs are covered. To make what I'm saying clear, for people with the lowest incomes, this isn't an either-or situation. Either we build affordable housing or we invest in rental assistance as we wait for people's incomes to rise. It is both. We both build affordable housing, and for folks who still can't afford it, we give them more money to pay rent. I'm encouraged by several local communities across the country that are experimenting with rent stabilization measures that both allow rents to moderately increase, but protect families from huge increases or unexpected costs. Implementing these strategies helps developers make money, properties and communities stay maintained over time, and sets the stage for ending most evictions and homelessness once and for all. In addition to housing, we can't ignore the existential threats in the social services and health care systems world. Community development can't succeed without a strong infrastructure of nonprofits and community leaders helping people in everyday ways. All of us need some level of community support to stay healthy and stable in our communities. We rely on a variety of services like access to the doctor or access to an urgent care clinic, mental health providers, substance use treatment programs, recreational programs for kids, and realtors to help us find a home. Some of our neighbors need extra support like 24/7 intensive case management that are flexible and meet the needs at any given time of these folks, or intensive housing support services that help them be able to find a place to rent and access critical services. All the Medicaid changes I described earlier threaten and undermine access to these services, along with the threats that the administration has made against programs that fund them. Because the federal government is illegally or marginally legally taking actions that are threatening this broader safety net. If people in your community rely on things like the Boys and Girls Club, and that Boys and Girls Club has diversity and equity and inclusion parts of their mission, or case managers funded through the homelessness system, and the continuum of care rightly prioritizes person-centered harm reduction and housing first strategies proven to end homelessness for millions over many decades now, but just hasn't been properly resourced. Or you get community development block grant dollars or community social services dollars, but either HUD or HHS are delaying sending those resources to your community because it's a sanctuary city or because it has a DEI office. Organizations that rely on these resources now are destabilized and may struggle to thrive and remain economically secure in your communities. So we need bold action and mobilization from across the housing and community development industry for what I think are common sense solutions to affordable housing and homelessness. And we all need to recognize that we can't achieve these, what should be straightforward goals, if people are unsafe and terrorized. We need to close the gap between these two policy worlds. The normal world will be useless to most of us if we let the existential threat world consume us. the racism, sexism, anti-immigrant, anti-LGBTQ+, anti-inclusion, anti-diversity world will penetrate everything, and eventually the normal world will combust. So my charge to all of you in this room is to go out and find one way to influence the broader community. To decide you can't stand by and assume your tenants, residents, neighbors, family members will be okay. Yes, we need to do all we can to improve how we create affordable housing, but we can't ignore the interconnectedness of the existential threats the communities you serve are facing. Anything we do in the affordable housing space will be all for naught if we don't first start with improving the lives of the people we say we're here to keep housed and economically secure. Thank you all so much for inviting me here today, and I hope the rest of the conference is fantastic. Take care.
All right, well, powerful words. And I really do appreciate it. I think we were talking a little bit that it's slightly bit of a rallying cry, not just a call to action. So appreciate that very much. I know Acting Governor Way had to skedaddle to her next event, but just wanted to take a moment to thank her for being here, but especially for Peggy Bailey for really putting into words, I think, what a lot of us have been feeling and a reminder of what we kind of need to be doing in this space. Now we actually get to enjoy lunch. Please talk amongst yourselves as much as you would like to. I do appreciate how quiet everybody was for Peggy very much. Just a reminder that there will be everybody's favorite dessert reception after lunch immediately following before the afternoon sessions start up. So please go over to the exhibitor floor for that after lunch. Thanks so much.